Welcome to Navaja Recaps. Today I'm going to explain a thriller sci-fi movie called The Platform. Let's move on to the story of the movie. In a dystopian future, a vast and mysterious prison known as the Vertical Self-Management Center holds hundreds of prisoners in a series of levels stacked vertically, with each level having 2 inmates. The prison operates on a disturbing system involving a large platform that delivers food daily to the prisoners. The platform begins its descent from the top level, where it is piled high with delicious and abundant food. This large platform stops for 2 minutes at each level. During that time, prisoners on each floor must begin eating. However, prisoners are prohibited from keeping food in their possession. Prisoners on the upper levels eat their fill, but as the platform descends through the levels, the food dwindles, and by the time it reaches the lower levels, only scraps, or sometimes nothing at all, are left. Every month, the prisoners are randomly reassigned to a new level. This means that 1 month, a prisoner might be near the top, enjoying plenty of food, but the next month, they could find themselves at the bottom, starving and desperate. Prisoners entering this prison are granted a certain privilege. That is, they are allowed to bring one thing of their choice into their cell. One day, a man named Goring entered this strange prison voluntarily. When Goring comes to prison, he has decided to bring his favorite book. He has chosen to be imprisoned in exchange for earning a diploma, but he quickly realizes that the situation is far worse than he had ever imagined. His first cellmate, Trimagasi, an older, jaded man, explains the brutal and cutthroat system of survival in the prison. Trimagasi tells Goring that the only way to survive is to look out for yourself, because the system has turned people into savages. Trimagasi has learned to adapt to the horrors of the prison, becoming increasingly selfish and cynical as he accepts that survival requires ruthlessness. When Goring first arrives at the prison, he is placed on level 48. The food on the platform is still plentiful, and he manages to eat his fill. Goring tries to keep the food close by, in addition to eating it. At this point, the cell begins to get very hot. Trimagasi explains that storing food is forbidden, and that doing so will heat up the cell. If the food is not removed, the heat will cause death. He learns quickly from Trimagasi that the system is designed to encourage self-preservation at the cost of humanity. The higher levels are privileged, while those on the lower levels suffer from the scraps left behind. This system is unfair, but there is nothing the prisoners can do about it. Goring asks why Trimagasi was imprisoned. At this point, Trimagasi says that it all started because of a TV commercial. That is, he bought an unusual knife he saw on TV one day. But a few days later, a TV commercial aired for a better knife. Trimagasi got angry and threw the TV out the window. But what happened was that a man walking on the street died because of it. So he has to choose between going to a mental hospital or coming to this prison. He has decided to come to this prison. The more time Goring spends in the prison, the more he starts to realize the inescapable inequality of the system. There is no fairness. There is no mercy. One day, a prisoner falls from a floor above them. Trimagasi says it's a common sight. As time passes, Goring becomes increasingly disillusioned with the way the prison operates. The next day, when the platform comes down, there is a woman sitting on it. The woman's name is Miharu. At this point, Goring is worried that she has been injured. Trimagasi tells him to ignore her and explains about her. Miharu is a mysterious woman who roams the levels in search of a child who she says is lost in the system. Trimagasi says that she kills her cellmate each time. Miharu's actions are strange, and her story is shrouded in mystery, but Miharu's search for the child is a tragic subplot that further explores the impact of the prison on those within it. The platform reaches the next level and the prisoners on that floor capture Miharu. Goring shouts at them to let her go. But his shouts are unnecessary, because Miharu kills them and returns to the platform. At the end of the first month, Goring and Trimagasi wake up to find that they've been reassigned to a much lower level, level 171. Here Goring is now tied to a bed. But he can't figure out why. At this point, Trimagasi tells him that he did it. Because Goring is a strong young man, Trimagasi needs to protect himself. At this point, the two hear people screaming in fear at their new cell level. Here, the platform is almost empty by the time it reaches them. The food is gone, and the two men are left starving. Goring begins to experience firsthand the true brutality of the system. He witnesses the desperate actions of other prisoners who are also hungry, and he quickly understands the harsh reality of life in the prison. 7 days pass like this and Trimagasi is willing to do whatever it takes to survive. He uses the knife to cut a piece of meat from Goring's thigh and tries to eat it. But at this time, the stage comes here and Miharu is on it. Miharu remembers that Goring felt sorry for her. So she attacks Trimagasi and frees Goring and gives him the knife. Goring, who is angry, kills Trimagasi without thinking twice. But the shock of it also makes Goring lose consciousness. When he wakes up, he sees that he is in bed again. He also sees Miharu bandaged his wound with a blanket. Miharu eats Trimagasi and brings a piece of meat to Goring. At first, he refuses, but then he eats it. Miharu, who does not say a word, Trimagasi gives water and goes on platform and leaves. As time passes, Trimagasi's body starts to infect worms. Goring eats the worms and ends his hunger. However, Goring begins to feel guilty about killing Trimagasi. At the end of the second month, a gas is released into these cells and Goring loses consciousness. When Goring wakes up, he finds himself in cell 33. At this time, his cellmate speaks to him and it seems that she recognizes Goring. Goring recognizes her too, and it is revealed that she was the one he interviewed when he arrived at the prison. Imagiri says she volunteered to come to prison. She also says that there are 200 floors in this prison. Goring tells her that the food the prisoners get in this prison is not enough. But she explains to Goring that the food is enough for all of these prisoners. If they only ate what they needed, there would be more than enough food. The more Goring witnesses the suffering around him, the more he becomes convinced that the system can only be changed if people work together. He realizes that if everyone in the prison rationed the food and worked together, there would be enough to feed everyone. At this time, Goring tells Imagiri about the missing child of a woman named Miharu. But she says that according to company policy, the company does not admit anyone under the age of 16 to this prison. The stage arrives at this time and Imagiri only eats as much food as she and her dog need. Then she prepares 2 plates of food. However, the stage moves to the next floor and Imagiri asks the prisoners to eat only the 2 plates of food she has prepared and prepare 2 more plates of food and send them down with her message. But the prisoners do not listen to Imagiri. However, this idea of cooperation seems impossible to bring to fruition. But Goring has understood that because Imagiri has worked in this prison, she is given special privileges by the management. Because of this, she is allowed to choose the cell of her choice. However, Imagiri does not give up. She prepares 2 plates of food every day and sends them down to the floor below. Even though the prisoners on the floor below make fun of her, she does not give up. After 2 weeks, Goring has had enough of her screams. Because of this, Goring threatens the prisoners below that if they do not follow Imagiri's advice, he will defecate on the table every day after eating. The next day, the platform comes down and the 2 see Miharu sitting on the platform. While the 2 check on her condition, Imagiri's dog steals the food on the platform. After a while, the platform goes down and the cell feels very cold. Imagiri sees that the dog is still eating the food that fell into the cell. Since they are not allowed to keep food, Imagiri has to remove the dog's food from the cell. In the evening, Goring lets Miharu sleep in his bed and he sleeps on the floor. But when he wakes up, he sees the 2 girls fighting. The reason for the fight is that Miharu eaten Imagiri's dog because he was very hungry. The next day, Miharu leaves the platform. At this time, Imagiri tells Goring what he knows about Miharu. Miharu came to this prison voluntarily 10 months ago. She has no children or family and is an actress. Imagiri tells Goring her story. She sent people to this prison in this way, not knowing that this prison was such a terrible place. She also said that she had been fighting cancer for 3 years. But she lost her fight and wanted to make a difference in the prison, so she was imprisoned. However, the last day for these people to spend in this cell is coming. After coming down the platform on this day, Goring eats well. But Imagiri does not eat and it seems that she is depressed because of the loss of her dog. When Goring wakes up the next morning, he finds himself on level 202. He realizes that there are more floors in this prison than Imagiri said. However, Goring sees that Imagiri has committed suicide by hanging himself by tearing off the bedsheet. At this time, the Trimagasi ghost appears to Goring. The ghost asks if he will eat his new cellmate. Along with this, he also sees the ghost of Imagiri and her dog. He tries his best to avoid these illusions. At this time, even though the platform comes here, it seems that there is no food there. He starts counting the days by dragging a broken plate on the wall. Eventually, his hunger increases and he eats Imagiri. After months of surviving the brutality of the system, Goring meets a new cellmate, Baharat. The two are on the 6th floor and there is plenty of food on the platform. But Bharat wants to escape this prison. Bharat is a young, idealistic man who believes that it's possible to escape the prison if they can get to the top. He has a rope and asks for help from the people on the 5th floor to climb it. The prisoners on that floor make fun of Bharat and finally decide to help. Bharat tries to climb to the 5th floor by hanging on the rope, but the prisoners on the 5th floor urinate in his face. This causes Bharat to slip on the rope and fall to the ground, but Goreng saves him. But because of what happened, he loses the rope. As time passes, Goreng and Bharat come up with a plan to travel to the lowest level of the platform. They decide to feed the prisoners on each level as they descend. They hope to inspire solidarity among the prisoners, believing that if they can show others the importance of sharing and cooperation, they might be able to survive together. But they can't do this alone. They need weapons for security, and the two break open a bed and use its iron bars as weapons. The next day, the platform arrives and the two climb onto it. Knowing that the journey is dangerous, they prepare for their descent. Goreng realizes that there is no need to feed the prisoners on the upper levels, because they can get good food for a month. He suggests that they feed the prisoners on the 50th floor below. Bharat initially disagrees, but then agrees. As they travel through the levels, they are confronted with a series of violent and desperate prisoners. Many of them are so hungry and distraught that they attack Goreng and Bharat, seeing them as threats to their survival. Those below level 50 are given food and thanked by the two. The lower levels of this prison, which has more than 250 floors, are filled with madness and vice, and it is even harder for the two men to hold on to their hope for change. The two see two prisoners attacking Meharu. One of them has a sword in his hand and the other is a tough guy. Goreng and Bharat go to help Meharu, but it seems that they have a hard time saving their lives. Goreng and Bharat kill the two prisoners and try to save Meharu, but she is dead. Bharat is left in the fight, but he and Goreng climb back onto the platform and travel down to the lower levels. This platform stops at floor 333. At first, the two think that there is no one in this cell. Finally, they realize they have reached the bottom of the dungeon, and they encounter a young girl. Goreng is surprised by her presence, seeing her as a symbol of purity and hope in the darkness. He realizes that she is Meharu's lost child, abandoned and forgotten in the dungeon. The two give the child some food and decide to rest in this cell. While Goreng sleeps, the ghosts of Trimagasai, Imagwiri, Meharu, and finally Bharat begin to appear. He awakens and finds Bharat dead from the pain of her wound. In an act of final rejection, Goreng decides to send the girl back to the platform, hoping that her journey will serve as a message to the people at the top of the tower. He believes that if those at the top see her rise, they will finally realize the horrors of the system and be motivated to make a change. As the platform begins to rise, Goreng remains behind, knowing that his journey has come to an end. He has made his stand against the system, and in sending the girl up, he hopes to inspire others to take action. The film ends on an uncertain note, with the fate of Goreng and the girl uncertain.